A blaze gutted the Joe Slovo informal settlement in Langa on the Cape Flats. 50 shacks were destroyed by a fire last night, leaving about 200 families destitute. Representatives of the Humanitarian group, Gift of the Givers, are also on site. We speak to the organization's spokesperson, Ali Sablay. Ali, thank you very much for your time this morning. Perhaps you can let us know, in terms of efforts underway at this hour at least, what's the latest?
What I can inform the viewers is there is 2 additional fires that has occurred in Cape Town in the early hours, besides the Joe Slovo informal settlement that occurred last night. In the early hours of this morning in Doornbach, Toulon, close to 100 structures burnt out, 400 plus people displaced. We are still waiting for the figures to come through from the fire in Ufaleni that has occurred in the early hours of this morning as well. So definitely a bleak Christmas for close to 1,000 people displaced in the Cape Town metropole, all in terms of living in informal settlement at fires that occurred. So Gift of the Givers teams were on the ground last night to do assessments. All credit due to the City of Cape Town Fire Department, who in difficult circumstances prevented a much bigger disaster in the Joe Slovo informal settlement. They managed to contain that fire and avoid flare-ups. With that fire, there was close to 200 people displaced. This morning, our teams will be on the ground to assist those fire-affected families with humanitarian aid. Our teams are currently en route to the Doornbach informal settlement in Toulon to see what assistance those victims require. So it will be a busy morning for the Gift of the Givers team members in the Cape Town metropole.
When you say firefighters were dealing with difficult circumstances, what does it mean? What does it speak to? Is it the makeup of the area?
The area is very densely populated, so the pathways are very narrow. Secondly, there were some issues with some community members preventing the firefighters of doing their work. And here we are appealing to the residents, please do not be selfish. If you have a problem with anybody, with a local municipality, it's not your duty to take it out on the civil servants who are putting their own lives at risk in preventing extensive damages or preventing the loss of life as well. Those people were dealt with by community members swiftly, and that we could see the fire department redeploying additional resources to bring that fire under control. They just finished up in Langa, where they went diverted to other fires in Doornbach and Ufaleni.
You mentioned Langa, and Newzroom Afrika's Nasi Pisame is actually there, and she spoke to a lady who broke down in telling the tale of how long they have been waiting for decent housing and decent structures. She mentioned a visit by an official back in 2022 already. This is, or rather the question being, how many fires have you responded to in informal settlements so far?
Well, from December till now, it's 50 plus fires we've assisted in the last 3 months, all of them informal settlements. Close to 15,000 people we have assisted already, and the number just continues. You know, I can understand the frustration of the people. Not long ago, I was speaking to one gogo, one grandmother, who told us it's the 6 fires she's dealing with. She prayed to God to not let her children go through it. Her children experienced fire. Her grandchildren experienced the same trauma of that fire, 3rd generation, and she's just hoping and praying before she closes her eyes she can have a permanent housing. And you know, it's a time of the month where some people just got paid. They did their people in the formal settlements, they work with budget. They did their monthly grocery shopping, and now that has completely all been destroyed. It's back to school coming in the coming week. All school children's uniforms, their stationery, etc., completely burnt out. So we will be assisting the families, the children affected by the fires with new school uniform and stationery as well. And once we will be feeding for the next 5 to 7 days and providing further humanitarian assistance in terms of blankets, mattresses, water, baby care packs, etc. And once those people are assisted, last night the National Department of Human Settlements was on site. They were supposed to leave for Gauteng this morning. They have stayed behind to render further assistance to all 3 fires, all 3 fresh fire sites. So those people have been assisted with temporary housing kits, and we will be assisting them with a food hamper, but this cannot go on long. The same site in Langa, as you correctly said, in 2022, Gift of the Givers did a massive intervention there, and we're back to square one now. The only solution for this is permanent housing to prevent these kind of disasters. And you can just imagine the trauma it has on the children and the young ones living in these informal settlements.
Ali, you said it, the only solution is to have proper structures for people to live in. And so when you mention over 50 fires in just 4 months, if we're counting from December, it's the last day of March, what sort of conversations are you hearing at least or partaking in where the provision of decent housing is expedited? It's been a number of years and these informal settlements keep growing because of whatever issues, right? Migration being one of them. But what conversations are being had about putting people up in decent houses?
Besides migration, you know, families are growing, the populations are increasing, and the square meters where those people are situated in is densely populated. So these families have no option, and then they send their children out because the house becomes too small for them to all live in. They send their children out to build additional structures on land, and you just see the increase of informal settlements in the Western Cape at a rapid rate. And speaking to authorities, we know we had an issue with the construction mafia in the Western Cape. There is an engagement between provincial and national government in tackling this construction mafia, because that's one of the challenges that in preventing people of having decent housing in the Western Cape. But that shouldn't be an excuse. There's additional land available. I think over the 30 years, more resources should be made available. You know, there should be you can't say there has to be an eye-opener. There's been many eye-openers already. And people are suffering. Being on the ground, you can see the current situation of suffering of the people. Besides the fires during the summer season, we are going into winter now. And when winter comes, there's again flood season. So these people have seasons, as we have seasons of weather, these people have seasons of disasters. If it's not summer, praying that a fire does not hit the structure, rest assured, once winter comes and this flooding occurs, the structures are going to be damaged and we're back to square one. So the only solution is permanent housing, a proper roof structure over the head, that these people to live in decent situations, not sleeping with one ear or one eye open. And mothers have explained to us, if a child hears someone shouting outside, the trauma the child goes through, jumping up, starts crying hysterically, it's a fire, it's a fire. In the meantime, it was not a fire, but just the trauma the child goes through in experiencing the process of once the fire occurs, having to leave all your belongings, going into an area where it's populated, living in a hall or living with family and friends. It's not a conducive environment.
Far from it. Ali, to your knowledge, what are these so-called construction mafias said to be doing or not doing to derail the building of houses?
As we know, they are trying to work with extortion, and as soon as site becomes available, these criminals, which have to be dealt with, they are enemies of the state because they are preventing people from having decency in their houses. They are charging extortion fees to people who want to build houses or giving tenders or giving the contract to build these houses. They are trying to make, normally it's a gang element, trying to, for renting people or taxing these construction people before they come on site of building these houses. So hopefully there can be a community engagement as well, where collectively we can tackle this problem and ensure that once a contract or is earmarked or housing is earmarked for a certain area, the process flows smoothly.